Good morning, Las Vegas. It's Zandra Pollard with It's Where I Am. Today, my guest is stunt coordinator, director, writer, Ben Hernandez Bray. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being
Happy to be
here.
here.
I'm
Thank
glad
you for
you're
having me.
here, even in your car.
Oh my
You're
God. I was
here.
like, I can't disappoint Sandra. I got to do this. I got to do. I was just telling my wife was saying the same thing. Really going to do it in the car. It's like, it's just, it's good to be busy. It's a blessing. So I was just coming out of a production meeting and I wasn't going to make it home. So
Well, thank you
literally
so much.
pull over. No, thank you for having me.
So you're working on, okay, so you did El Chicano. It was the first Latin superhero movie, and it had uh, George Lopez as one of the actors involved. And
Yes.
so it was a great movie. Are you going to continue with that, El Chicano? Are we going to see a number two or?
You will. You will. Right now, I'm in the works of writing another revised version of our continued story of El Chicano, part two. I'm also working with Joe Carnahan, who is my co-writer and executive producer on the first film, a series called The Shiv that right now we're pitching over at Netflix. So we're excited about that.
Okay.
And there's a lot happening with El Chicano, but yes, there is going to be a part two, and we hope somewhere at the end of next year we'll be
Nice.
in prep. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, but right now you're working on Big Sky.
Big Sky,
And,
yeah, which has been a blast. Good
okay.
times.
And Big Sky is about human trafficking. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's really nice to see Kylie, who's part of the show, these two female detectives in this rural town in Montana, and it is about the human trafficking. There's also a human story about the relationship they have together, and just kind of coping with everyday life also. And just on top of the fact they're investigating, I can't say too much because I'll get in trouble about what's happening with the storyline. But it's a great show. It's a great show with great actors and again a great cast, great crew. It's been a lot of fun, and we're shooting. We actually shoot in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the show that's supposed to take place in Montana.
Okay. And so you've done a couple of episodes for Big Sky, and
Yes.
it's about a trucker who is kidnapping or who has kidnapped a couple of girls driving on a trip somewhere. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. The story now has progressed into the second season, and it's kind of, as to use a word of kind of spleened out to other stories, which are really great. And I think the audience and the fans are going to love it. Again, I can't say too much as each episode progresses, but the original storyline from the first season was that, and now it's kind of it's opened up to like literally four different stories within an episode, which is really exciting.
Wow. And so isn't it something, the storyline, right? We're
Yeah.
going to have a guest on later on, Shatona Nelson, who's going to be talking about human trafficking. And she works on the federal level with human
Oh
trafficking.
wow.
Yes. And so we're going to speak to her and find out, what's going on, what she's working on and such. But for now, um, I was really excited to have you on, one, because of the El Chicano film, two, because you're working on Big Sky that's dealing with a real life situation. But I also wanted to talk to you about how you got into directing. So I was reading about you and that, the trauma of, you lost your brother to gang violence. Um, and then you started boxing and you became a stunt coordinator. correct? And you've won some awards for doing that.
Yeah,
So that's a lot I just put out there. So I think it's very interesting that, it's great that we have more representation. And I love that you are putting your flavor on Big Sky. So
thank
how
you.
d- how did you um take this journey? What was that like for you?
God, if you would have told me when I was 20 years old what this journey was going to be, I wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't have believed it. It's been a wild ride, and a blessing of a ride. It literally, I grew up. I had family in San Fernando, Pacoima, Silmar, all in the San Fernando Valley. We were raised in. I was born in Panorama City, raised in Van Nuys. I have family in East Los Angeles. So I'm half American, half Mexican. My father was never around, so it was my mother and my grandmother that raised me. They were both from Durango, Mexico. I grew up in a typical Latino Catholic family of six, and we struggled. We got by with government funding. We were on welfare. We had a very hard upbringing. It was tough for my mom. Um, Everything you hear about the lower class, which I'm very proud of because it made me who I am today. But we lived off the government cheese, the free milk, food stamps, welfare, anything that we could to get by as my mom struggled to make ends meet. And
Yeah.
we grew up in a what people say the ghetto, the hood. We call it the barrio, and that's where I grew up. And we struggled with gang violence and exposed to drugs and all those temptations. Um, and my mom was tough. She kept us clean, and as I went through high school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I had a couple of jobs, and I was an English major at a junior college. I was also boxing.
Right.
Not too competitively, just more like sparring and working out. My brother was on the U.S. Olympic team with Oscar De La Hoya and Shane Mosley. He
Okay.
was one of the best in the world. So actually, it was a real blessing because I was okay. But then you see my younger brother, who is
Mhm.
at the elite level. It's like I realized, okay, this is. I love fighting. It's my first love. Boxing is always going to be my first love, and it's how it got me in the business. But I knew I had to figure something else out to do as a living. I knew like what I saw my brother doing, there was no way I was going to be at that level. Didn't know what it was, but I just kept training and figuring it out. And I was at a boxing gym in Van Nuys, actually the Jet Center, Benny Nikita's gym. And a director and a stunt coordinator walked in and saw me hitting the bag and
Okay.
asked me to audition for this part. And I said, okay, cool, yeah, sure. I got in the ring with my younger brother, and we just put a fight together as we did when we were kids in the living room at home.
Yes.
And I got a call the next day, and I booked it. It was a director named Nigel Dick, who's a British director, and the reason why they were looking instead of a stuntman, they wanted a real fighter, someone that knew how to box and move around, because the one of the lead actors was Gary Stretch, who actually was the junior welterweight champion in England. So they wanted someone to match, you know, the mobility and movement and make it look real.
Okay.
Yeah. So when that happened, I just met all these stuntmen, a lot of Mexican stuntmen, brown. We used to call each other brown guys,
Hey.
and had no idea that this. I knew the job existed, but had no idea how I was going to fall into that. So I met these wonderful guys who took me under their wing and taught me the business. I was like, wow, I got the bug. And then I learned how to slide cars and do high falls and fire burns and wire work. And it started my career. And I learned as I went. I learned by watching and doing. That was my school. And then from there, I had some wonderful people in my life. One, Ron Stein, who was the president of Stunts Unlimited at the time. He really treated me as his son. It was like he was like my second dad. And this other gentleman by the name of we used to call him Big Buck, Steve Buckingham. He was from Compton, big African American guy. He actually used to train me as a fighter, but he was also a stuntman.
Okay.
Um, so there are these two dynamics, these two guys that really took me under their wing and taught me the business. And what I was taught very early on is to be a stuntman is like being an athlete. you can only do this for so long. So learn camera, learn what to do behind camera, because eventually you're going to hang up those stunt pads and the
Right.
next generation is coming, just like a ball player, football, baseball, basketball, the same deal. And I really wanted to stay in the business. So once I paid my dues as a stuntman, I transitioned into becoming a stunt coordinator. And to make that a long story short, I had a very successful career. This is where I met my second set of mentors,
Okay.
which were David O. Russell and Joe Carnahan. David I met on Three Kings. And I should also say Dan Bradley was another stunt coordinator who really gave me some great opportunities and actually got me my SAG card. Dan brought me in on Three Kings, and I met David O. Russell, and we just hit it off. He was a big boxing fan. He was a big Muhammad Ali fan, and he knew about my brother.
Uh-huh.
So all of a sudden, he put me in this part with George Clooney in Three Kings, and we kept in touch. We started training together after the movie ended while he was editing here in Hollywood, Warner Brothers Hollywood, and we just built this bond. And he just asked me what I want to do, and I said I want to eventually coordinate. I want to direct second unit, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I want to eventually tell stories and direct. So he was my kind of guiding light, and
Okay.
through him, I met Joe Carnahan. And next thing you know, I'm directing second unit for all of David's films. So I did The Fighter, I directed second unit for The Fighter, Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle, Joy. And for Joe Carnahan, I did The A-Team, The Gray, Smoking Aces, and a film called
That's the one
Stretch.
you won an award for, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So it
So with
was a
all
real
of
blessing.
that, like when did you lose your brother, your friend? When did that
Now, I lost him. It's been 15 years, 15 and a half years. I
oh,
lost him when we were in the middle of filming Smoking Aces. He had,
oh,
it's just, my mom was tough, man. She did the best. I think he was my baby brother, and God bless her. It's like we're human, so it's really tough. He was the youngest, so there was five other ones she had to go through to keep them in line.
sure.
And by the time she got to my brother, she was
She was
tired.
tired. Yeah,
Yeah, she was
poor.
really tired.
Yes.
Yeah, it's exhausting. And she fought the good fight, did the best she can. But my brother also had the personality that he loved that life. He loved hanging out with the homeboys and being out in the streets. And we all talked to him. There was me and my brother John and Frank. We did our best to always talk to him and
Do
try
you
to
think
stray him in the right area.
sure. Do you think that that helped you with your writing process? Absent father, loss of your brother.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
most definitely.
because El Chicano deals with two brothers, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And
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 one.
that's where the story came from.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Can you
it
still
was
check out El Chicano on Netflix? Because I know that's where I saw it a few years ago. Is it still there?
it's still on Netflix. It's
Okay.
on Disney Plus. I think it's on Hulu now, and also iTunes. It's on iTunes for
Okay.
Apple. So yeah, it's been really cool. But yeah, it was losing my brother was it's always tragic. You always think that your brother and sister is going to be around forever, and it's just heartbreaking. And what happened is I kind of started writing a memoir of how I was dealing with his death, how my brothers and sisters were dealing with his death, and most importantly, my mother having to bury a child.
Okay.
And it was tough, and that's kind of what formed El Chicano, the theme of it. The El Chicano, the character itself was created for the fact that I always felt like maybe if my brother Craig would have had my father or a father figure,
Yeah, those
maybe he'd still be alive.
sure.
And so I was writing that character was kind of a theme of like a metaphor of not having a dad. What if we had this kind of character that we could look up to in the neighborhood that
Okay.
would, fight the bad and give back to the good, and that's how EC was created, off of unfortunately my brother's tragedy that kind of formed this whole big story.
Sure.
And unfortunately having somebody like Joe Carnahan who helped get me where I needed to get the movie done.
Nice.
So it's been a
Well,
blessing.
I know I'll be looking forward to part two, the continuation of El
Thank you.
Chicano.
Gracias.
Hey, this is for La Raza. Did I say it right?
That's right, baby. That's right. Yeah, you did. You did.
Is there anything else you want our listeners to know?
You know what? I think I'm Mexican American. You know, I grew up in the hood, in the ghetto, the barrio. You know, however you want to. I want people to identify that wherever you come from, especially for me, I'm talking about the people, the gente of any color and any race that you know that have had financial struggles and wanting to be in this business, that you can do this. You can think outside the box.
That's
You
right.
don't have to necessarily go to school. You don't have to, everybody always asks me, oh, wow, what film school did you go to? What workshops? Like, I did none of that. I said, I got myself in the business when I was 20 years old, and I learned and watched on set. That was my school. And I trusted my instincts. And, and you fight the good fight. And it's tough for people, minorities, people of color. It's still, in fact, when I was on set on Big Sky, you have some Chicanos, some Mexicanos that are working. They're from Albuquerque and Santa Fe, and they're always shocked to go, "Man, it's so good to see you." And
Yes.
I'm like, "So good to see you." I'm like, "I'm sorry, do I know you?" And it's like, oh, "My bad." I meet so many people, and he's like, "No, you as a minority, as a Mexican American, we don't see any of you." And it's true. Even when I was an actor at one time and a stunt actor, I might have met one Mexican director. Um, I think I worked with one at that time for me in the early 90s, one female director, one African American director. I mean, it's still it's getting better, but it's very
Listen.
limited.
Right.
Yes,
Right. We're getting
we got to push. We got to push. We have stories. We have the talent and the ability to tell stories that, especially television shows, that have been created by somebody else, and we
absolutely.
can put our flavor on.
That's
So I think that's what I want to say. I feel like I'm proud to say that every time I step onto a set directing now, I feel like I'm making history for the next generation. I'm chipping away to the diversity,
yes.
and and I'm and I'm letting people know that, yeah, you can do this. If you would have saw me 30 years ago where I was at, living in the hood, and now I'm yelling action and talking to
Yes.
actors, and it's a blessing, man. It's thank you God, and anybody can do it.
That's
Anybody
right.
can do it.
I'm
Yeah,
next.
that's it. That's right.
Wait, so when can we catch excuse me, when can we catch Big Sky?
Big Sky's on. I think now it's I think is it Thursdays at 8 o'clock? No, Thursdays at 10 p.m. I'm
Okay.
horrible on ABC.
Okay.
Uh Keep watching, man. It is a great season with some great directors and producers. Jeff Thomas, our producer director, that's on there.
And
Elwood
the
Reed,
creator
who's
of Big Little Lies, correct?
yes, yeah, yes. Elwood's amazing. Uh, other producers like Julian. There's just a great group of individuals that are just extremely talented and are also giving opportunities, which I'm a huge fan of the show. Not only the show and them, for minorities. They're out there. We have Darren Grant, who's African American, who's off doing I think Billionaires right now in New York, is doing 2 episodes this season. We have some wonderful female directors that are coming in. Lisa Leone, who just did one, she's amazing. It's like these are the kind of people that we need to back us.
Absolutely.
Elwood Reed is giving opportunities to have people of color in and say, yeah, man, you can do this. You can tell these stories, and we're happy to have you. So it's been great. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you again for being here, Ben. And
Thank you so
you're
much.
more than welcome to come back and keep us
I
updated
have to.
on what's going
I got to come back now. I got to
on.
come back because I
Yes,
want the background to be my office with the El Chicano poster in the background. Because right now my wife
absolutely.
is not happy that I'm in the car.
And neither am I.
I know. I know. I'm sorry,
But until
and I
next time,
apologize to your fans. Yes,
until
we'll do it again
okay.
next time.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much.
All righty. We'll talk to
All
you
right.
soon.
Talk
Bye.
to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.
My next guest is Shatona Nelson. She works on the federal level dealing with human trafficking. So she's going to give us, you know, some real life situations. And if you may remember her from a previous show um, that I had with her, she was unfortunately a rape victim at I believe the age of 8 years old and left for dead. Uh, and now she's working at the White House on the federal level dealing with human trafficking to help others in her community and nationally. So let's bring on Shatona. Okay, Shatona, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So it's so interesting. I thank you so much for being here because I called you at the last minute because my last guest was the director of Big Sky, and the show is about human trafficking.
Mhm.
And you were a guest, I think it was last year or earlier in the year, and you were telling us your personal story and that now you are working on the federal level with human trafficking.
Right.
Tell us more about that, refresh our memories. Um, how are you involved? Give it to us.
Okay. So when it comes to trafficking, it's so complicated because there are different types of trafficking,
Sure.
although people only know about sex trafficking for the most part.
Correct.
So for me, I have a background that was very violent, where I was raped. And I could always identify with victims. So that would begin me starting with the local precincts who would call me if they would have a victim that would be hard to talk to about rape. Most victims don't really like to talk to people who haven't experienced what they've experienced. They don't like to be judged. I would at some point meet a person who was not just sexually assaulted, but we would find out the person whom she thought she was married to was trafficking her. She didn't even know what it was.
Okay.
That would I would start working with the police department on that. And that would lead to me working one at the state level. They would call me for different cases. And then at some point, it would become federal people. I would just get to know them, federal agents, whether that was national boards, like Polaris is one, or whether it was just FBI agents who were just in territories who, they like to have people who know what they're doing, talk to specific people and things of that sort. So that is still my involvement to this day. I do a lot here in the Houston area to help with trafficking, not just sexual trafficking. I do a lot to help identify victims, to speak to victims, to get them to speak to police officers that, in fact, then they pursue cases.
So when you say human trafficking, what does that all encompass?
Human trafficking is a really broad thing, but it's a really new thing. So it's
Right.
ever evolving, right? Human trafficking looks all kinds of ways. It looks like getting immigrants to work. You take them who are very new, who don't necessarily speak languages. They will tell them, hey, I'm going to pay you for special opportunities, or you can pay us to do special opportunities. And that turns into a slavery type situation. You
Okay.
you also have trafficking that comes from internet, the dark web, where there are lurkers who look at the dark web at usually high school students, girls that say, oh, I'm going to be a model because I talked to this guy online that promised me a modeling career. But in fact, he's actually trafficking her. And then you have a really broad range where they actually take women, take children, take people from where they are, and they ship them somewhere else to be sold, usually for sex purposes or working purposes. So trafficking is really, really broad.
Okay. And also, I think I was reading about organs and stuff are involved too, like people taking.
Organ harvesting, that's right. They
Okay.
will do that too. And most cases, when you think about trafficking, is they sell these people, or they take people somewhere, and you never see them again. And a lot of cases, they're alive for decades working, but in some cases they do absolutely kill them, and in other cases they only traffic people just for their body parts.
Oh, wow. That's deep.
Yeah.
Um, so how can we protect ourselves?
Knowledge. People ask me that all the time. They say, well, It sounds scary. You're telling me it could
Yes.
be someone can marry a man who she thinks her husband, and then he's just passing her through friends, and that's trafficking? Like, yeah. You're
Wow.
telling me my kids can be on the internet selling pictures, and technically that can be counted as a sense of trafficking or lead to trafficking? Yes. But if
Mm.
you don't know what trafficking is, you cannot combat it. The very first thing that I tell everyone and anyone is trafficking should be something we talk about to the masses, because education teaches you a lot. So you know what the signs look like as an immigrant, as a child, as a parent, right? Anybody who suffered abuse, they need to know, because um, anyone in a marginalized community are more likely to be trafficked. So African American community, LG, the lesbian, gay community,
Plus. Mm-hmm.
they're more likely to be. So you need to know that. So number one is education. When you get education on it, then you know there are groups all over the United States, federal level, right there in your backyard, of organizations that look out for it. You can start reporting people when you see people with suspicious activity or saying things they shouldn't say. A lot of traffickers are teachers. They found that they infiltrate the school systems now,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
Or entertainment industry. So you want to get
Yeah.
educated on it, and you want to just be aware of what's happening, and you want to report that to your local offices. And if you're like me and you just really, really want to get involved, then you find organizations and groups that you can connect to volunteer or
Okay.
just to understand what's happening. And my last one, and always the biggest one, I tell people this all the time: surveillance of your kids and of your home. It's fine to have alarm systems. It's fine to have trackers on your kids' phones, even if it's just where's my iPhone, and husbands and wives, families sharing locations with each other. That's something we should all constantly do. Someone should always know where you are.
Wow. 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 Thank you so much. That's a lot to take in. So, what are some of these places you said that we can get involved? Polaris was one.
Right.
Uh, what are the others? Because I want to have something posted on my website. So you tell me.
So this is the best way to do it. So trafficking isn't one of the things that you Google and you don't find real resources. There
Okay.
are such an array of resources. Literally typing in trafficking organizations will give you so many different lists and organizations, and generally specific to where you are,
Okay.
right? So if you're in Vegas, you definitely want to be putting up things about Vegas. If you're in Houston, you want to put it up about Houston. But there is a trafficking national database. But for
Mhm.
me, what makes the most sense is to be aware of your area. I live in Houston. I know Houston is one of the most uh, is one of the biggest cities in the nation, which obviously trafficking would be huge here. Atlanta, hot ticket spots. You need to know where you live and where you rank,
And
right?
for sure, Las Vegas. Hello.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
y'all up there.
city.
I think
Yeah.
we are in the top five: Vegas, Atlanta, New York, Houston. Definitely like top five. That's right.
All right. Well, I'll have something on the website. It's whereiam.com. We'll post something, so that you can get involved, so that you can gain that knowledge. Is there anything else you want our listeners to know, Shatona, before I let you go?
I just want anyone who's maybe watching it, who is scared, who needs any kind of help, or who is suspicious, trust your gut and never be afraid to get help. It's better to get help and take that chance than to be taken or something to happen to you and you never stand a chance. And
Oh,
that's what I try to tell people more than anything else: get help.
thank you so much. Now, before I do let you go, you told me you were working on a project. You're doing a documentary.
Yeah, I'm actually on trafficking. Yeah, so right now I am putting together a docu-series, and
Oh,
it is pretty much based on trafficking and the education of trafficking. It is a project that kind of fell into my lap. I was doing so many things with trafficking, and then at some point, one of the ladies said, "You know, Shatana, it's like we have a duty. She's a victim, and she survived it." And she was like, "Let's do something with it." And I was already in the TV realm, and I just kind of threw it out to some different networks and production companies, and most of them jumped on it. I took the better offer, and I'm actually working on that right now.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much for all that you do, Shatona. Thank you for being here.
For having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you heard it here. Thank you for listening. Make sure you tune in next month. I'm here every second Saturday at 8:30 a.m. It's where I am.